Hello, football fans, and welcome to the inaugural Season 1 preseason episode for the All-Created Teams Dynasty. You are currently tuning into the Doug Steele Podcast, and we got a good one for you guys here today. We are going to be reviewing all 130 teams that are in this dynasty, go over the top 25 rankings, as well as some notable matchups to keep an eye on for week 1. But before I get into it, make sure you smash that like button, and if you're brand new to the channel as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me as well. Now, going into which teams are going to be in this Maximum Football 2019 All-Created Teams Dynasty. Now we're going to start with the Big North Conference, which is the conference that I am going to be in, at least the team that I'm controlling for the course of this dynasty. We're going to start with the Mount Union Purple Raiders, which is the team that I'm going to be controlling, as well as John Carroll, Benedictine, Marietta, Williams, Wilmington, Ohio Northern, Heidelberg, Hamilton, Otterbein, DePaul, Capital, Muskegum, and Baldwin Wallace are all going to be in the Big North Conference. These are mostly teams that are in the OAC, but we do have a few scraps from the North Coast Athletic Conference, as well as a buddy or two from the NASCAC, otherwise known as New England Small Colleges Athletic Conference as well. So that is your Big North Conference. As who I think is going to win, I mean, this is going to be a really solid conference, I think, but Mount Union, I believe, is head and shoulders above everybody else in this conference. So I'm going to be rocking with them until somebody within the conference can grow some cojones and actually beat these guys. So this is your Big North Conference for this All-Created Teams Dynasty. Alright, so next up we have the Stars and Stripes Conference, which is the equivalent of Conference USA here in Maximum Football. Here we have a combination of teams from the Empire 8 Conference, as well as some of the weaker squads that are from the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So what you're going to see in the Stars and Stripes Conference is Gustavus Adolphus, Hartwick University, St. John Fisher, Brockport, Augsburg, Carleton, Buffalo State, Bethany, Cortland, Concordia Moorhead, Utica, Morrisville State, Bethel, and Alfred is going to round up that group. Now Bethel, in my opinion, has probably had the best season and probably has the best team returning for this All-Created Teams Dynasty for Season 1, at least according to DivisionFreeFootball.com, which of course is the main source of Division Free sports. So I think for this conference, I feel I'm going to rock with Bethel, but I also think that Alfred has a chance to make some noise and potentially unseed Bethel, as they've been on the upswing quite a bit these past 2 to 3 seasons. So I think it's going to be Bethel that ends up winning this conference, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alfred overtakes them at the end of this season. Next up, we have the unaffiliated schools, otherwise known as the independent schools. This is, of course, the Maximum Football equivalent of it. Here you'll find all 6 teams that are a part of the Liberty League. I have them here simply because they have a 6-team conference for 6 independent schools, and that's why I have them here in the unaffiliated. But the teams you'll find in this conference are St. Louis, Rochester, RPI, Ithaca, Union, and then Hobart is rounding out that group. All of these schools, of course, are in the state of New York, so there's a little bit of New York pride in here, trying to win this conference every single season. As of today, I have RPI winning this conference. However, Ithaca did get a transfer from Brockport, who is considered probably one of the top 5 or 10 quarterbacks within all of Division 3. So I think while RPI still has the edge because of their deep playoff appearance in the previous season, you still got to keep an eye on Ithaca, as they probably have the best chance of unseating RPI when this season is all said and done here in the All-Created Teams Dynasty. Next up, we have the MAC equivalent in Maximum Football in the Midwest Conference. Here you will mostly find teams from the CCIW Conference in Division 3, as well as a couple of schools from the NACC as well. over the course of this Created Teams Dynasties. In this conference, you will find Illinois Wesleyan, Washington University, that's actually in St. Louis, North Park, Carthage, Rose-Hulman, that is a Heartland Conference school, Wheaton, Carroll, Augustania, Manchester, who's also from the Heartland, Milliken, Amherst, and North Central, that is in the great city of Chicago, Illinois. In terms of how I think this conference is going to shake out, I really think that North Central is going to end up winning it all here, as I have them ranked in the top 5 of my personal top 25 going into this season. If you want to check out those podcast rankings for the preseason, feel free to check out the very third podcast in the description below, as well as that little note in the upper right hand side. But I do think North Central is going to win it all. And then Washington University, I think, has the best chance of challenging them for that conference championship in the latter stages of the season. But this is your Midwest Conference in the nutshell. It may be considered one of the weaker conferences right now, but I definitely think that they can surprise some people as a whole when it is all said and done over the course of this dynasty. After the Midwest Conference, you will next find the Rocky Mountain Conference, which is Maximum Football's version of the Mountain West. Here you will find teams mostly from the Northwest Conference in Division 3. You'll also find a couple of teams from some of California's only Division 3 conference, as well as a team from, I believe, the American Rivers Conference, which is one of my personal favorites for all Division 3. Here you'll find Lewis and Clark, Pacific University, Wilmette, Chapman, Winfield College, Nebraska Wesleyan, Pacific Lutheran, Whitworth, 877 Cash Now, Puget Sound, George Fox, Claremont Mudd Scripps, which is actually 3 different colleges in one athletic program. Little fun fact for you of the day. And then rounding up the group is Redlands University. You know, this is going to be a pretty competitive conference. This is actually probably one of the best conferences in the non-Power 5. And it's no insult to the Northwest Conference that they end up in the Mountain West. I just couldn't find a good place to put them, since there's not a lot of out west teams in Division 3. But I think they also can surprise some people as well. They're better than their 8th out of 11 ranking in terms of collegiate conferences. As for who I think is going to be really the bannerman of this conference, I'm looking at Winfield College here, home of the Wildcats. I think they have an extremely talented football team. They kind of underachieved over the past couple of years, but I think they get over that hump, really that little hill, take that next step forward. And not only do they win the conference, but I think they make some noise potentially in the playoffs if they get a Final Four spot, since it's a 14 playoff in this dynasty mode. As for who I think can challenge them, Redlands also is a really good squad. They were on the verge of making the playoffs ever since they had a loss against Claremont Mudd Scripps. In real life, they really had their offense firing, and I think they continue to do that this season. So I'm looking at Winfield to win it all, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Reds wins the conference as well when it's all said and done. But ladies and gentlemen, this is your Rocky Mountain Conference and the All-Created Teams Dynasty with Division 3 teams. Speaking of out west conferences, next up we have the Big Pacific Conference, which is the equivalent of the Pac-12. Here you'll mostly find teams from the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, as well as the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, considered one of the best Division 3 conferences in all of Division 3. Here you will find Stevens Point, Platteville, La Crosse, Whitewater, St. John's, as well as St. Thomas, Eau Claire, Oshkosh, St. Olaf, Hamlin, who I'm actually going to be playing with Mount Union against for week 1 for tomorrow, so definitely need to check that out when that video drops. University of Wisconsin Stout, as well as River Falls. This is going to be an extremely difficult conference. There's a lot of playoff contenders that were in the actual Division 3 playoff last season. I think whoever wins this conference is definitely going to get a playoff spot in that Final Four when it is all said and done. As for who I think is going to get that playoff spot, it's really difficult to say. Right now, I'm leaning towards St. John's to end up winning it all here, but you know, that champion can come from anywhere in this group. Everyone here has a realistic shot of winning the conference championship because it's just so good from top to bottom. But as of today, I have St. John's winning it all. But this is your big specific conference for the course of this All-Created Teams Dynasty. Moving over to the south of this country, though, we are going to the Super Southeast Conference, which you can easily guess that this is the SEC version of that Maximum Football has. Here you will find teams mostly from the Southern Athletic Association, but you'll also find a couple of teams from the ODAC, as well as some teams up in Massachusetts to kind of sprinkle things together, trying to split some of the teams that are in the great northeast of this country, since there's a good number of teams in Division 3 in that part of the country. Here you will find Austin's, Millsaps, Wesleyan University, Rhodes College, Sewanee, who is actually an original SEC founder, so that's a huge fun fact for you guys today. Trinity, Texas, Methodist, North Carolina Wesleyan, Hendricks, Berry, West Hartford, home of the Bantams, one of the more interesting names in Division 3. It's a logo of a cow, fun fact. Amherst, Birmingham Southern, and Central College, home of the Colonials. So Super South Conference is going to be pretty challenging in my opinion. It'd be interesting to see who comes out on top, since this is one of the bigger conferences that is in this dynasty, honestly. I think Central has a slight edge, but I also think that Trinity out of Texas can come out on top here, which would be a huge boost since they already are going to have that Texas pipeline, and that's going to be really helpful with recruiting early on and really establishing themselves over the course of this All-Created Teams Dynasty. But ladies and gentlemen, this is your Super South Conference over the course of the All-Created Dynasty, so it'll be interesting to see how this entire conference really shakes out during the course of this series. The next conference to be revealed for this All-Created Teams Dynasty is the little brother of the Super South Conference in the Sunshine Conference, which is the max football version of the Sun Belt. Here you will find teams mostly from the NJAC, as well as a couple of teams from the ODAC as well, if I'm not too terribly mistaken. Here you'll find Guilford, Wesley, Southern Virginia University, Salisbury, William Patterson, Rowan, Montclair State, TCNJ, that is definitely a technical school, I'm not going to bother to say the full pronunciation of it, Keene College, and Christopher Newport to round out this group. Definitely one of the smaller conferences that is in this dynasty, but I think there might be a couple of storylines still to be followed. I think it's going to be a two-team race at the end of the day between Montclair State as well as Salisbury. So I think one of those teams will end up winning the Sunshine Conference for Season 1. But for right now, as of today, I'm going to go with Montclair State. Be interesting to see, though, how the season shakes out, because I'm not really getting too great of a read on the Sunshine Conference, to be honest. But these are the teams that are going to be representing the Sunshine Conference, some of the Division 3 teams for Maximum Football's equivalent of the Sun Belt Conference. After we take a tour through the Sunshine Conference, we have the American Conference parity in the National Athletic Conference. Here you will find teams mostly from the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, although you'll happen to find a couple of teams from the American Rivers Conference, as well as, I believe, from the New England Small Colleges Association that's going on up in the northeast part of the country. So here are the teams that are going to represent this conference is Wartburg, Adrian, Olivet, Trine, Alma, Tufts, Iowa Wesleyan, Finlandia Lions, who actually their football field is named after legendary punter Pat McAfee, Hope College, Grinnell, Kalamazoo, and then Albion is going to round up the group for the National Athletic Conference. Here I'm gonna go with Wartburg here. I feel like Wartburg has really taken some steps over the past couple of seasons to really prove themselves as one of the better Division 3 football programs in the country, albeit probably a little bit underrated. I think it's going to come out here in this dynasty that Wartburg wins the National Athletic Conference for Season 1. Although Hope has been really good over the past 3 years as well. So don't sleep on Hope College, as you know, Hope has really put a lot of resources into their football program, and they are benefiting the results of that. So go with Wartburg here, but don't be surprised if Hope wins it all at the end of the season. But these are the teams that are going to represent the National Athletic Conference for the All-Created Teams Dynasty in Maximum Football. Following the introduction of the National Athletic Conference, we are going to go over to the Atlantic Shore Conference, which is Max Football's version of the ACC. Here you'll mostly find teams from the Centennial Conference, which is based mainly out in Pennsylvania. Of course, there's also a couple of teams that are thrown in from the Northeast as well. So the teams that are going to be in the Atlantic Shore Conference for this All-Created Teams Dynasty is Muhlenberg's, Bates, Ucernus, Franklin and Marshall, Gettysburg, Kobe, Moravian, Bowdoin, Johns Hopkins, Dickinson, McDaniel, Middlebury, Juniata, Susquehanna is going to be rounding out the list. I mean, there's not really too much to talk about in terms of who I think is going to win the conference this season. Johns Hopkins, they went to the semifinals in the Division III playoffs last season, and they actually gave Mount Union a really good game. They ended up losing 28-20, but they nearly went to the championship game last year, and I think it's going to be no different this year. I think they potentially get a top 4 spot, even though they have a brand new coach this season, and I think they easily win the Atlantic Shore Conference. But these are the teams that are going to be representing the Atlantic Shore Conference over the course of this Division III All-Created Teams Dynasty. And the final conference that is going to be revealed for the Doug Steele Podcast for this preseason is the Big Southwest Conference, which is Maximum Football's version of the Big 12. Here you will find teams from the ASC, the American Southwest Conference, I believe is what it's called. Here you will find Louisiana College, Belhaven, Hardin-Simmons, East Texas Baptist, Sul Ross State, Texas Lutheran, Southwestern, Howard Payne, Mary Hardin Baylor, and the McMurray Warhawks, which Kay Freezy is actually doing a dynasty for NCAA 14 on his channel. Definitely should check it out if you get the chance. As for who I think is going to win the conference, I mean, I don't think it's really up for debate, to be honest. Mary Hardin Baylor is the defending national champions in Division III in real life. So I'm going to rock with Mary Hardin Baylor, not only to win the championship for the Big Southwest, but I also think they are going to end up winning the national championship when it's all said and done. No question to ask, but this is my final conference to be revealed, as this is your Big Southwest Conference for the Division III All-Created Teams Dynasty, only here on Maximum Football 2019. Alright, so now that all the teams have been revealed, time to go over the NCAA Coaches Preseason Poll, followed by their podcast rankings, and I gotta say, it is a huge shakeup here. It goes by relatively quickly, so I understand if you want to pause it, but you know, it's quite a shakeup, and I am extremely surprised to see the rankings that this game has came up with for the first season, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out going forward, because we certainly got some interesting things going on in that poll, but we'll find out who's right and who's not. But yeah, what do you guys think of the rankings that the game come up with? Do you think there's some teams that are going to ultimately fall out, or do you think there's any teams in that bottom half of the top 25 that could end up vying for a national championship? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Finally, for the final part of this podcast, I'm going to go over notable games to watch out for this Week 1 slate. First and foremost, we have the Mount Union Purple Raiders taking on the Hamlin Pipers on the road. Number 9 team in the country in Mount Union. They should have an easy game against Hamlin, although that will be aired on my channel. Right now I have that set for Tuesday, so that'll be an interesting game to watch. Keep in mind, I know some of the colors are a little bit off, I do plan on updating the colors as soon as possible, but I wanted to make sure if I get this podcast out for you guys because I know you have been waiting for it since this game has came out this past Friday. Another game that we are going to keep an eye out for is the number 7th ranked North Carolina Wesleyan Battle and Bishops are going to be going on the road to play a surprisingly unranked St. John's team. That's going to be aired over on Octagonal's channel, which is going to be set to be released hopefully later this week, depending on when I can get the games out to my fellow content creators that are collaborating with me on this series. Another game that we will certainly keep an eye on is the now number 1 ranked Berry Vikings going on the road against Juniata Eagles. That game is going to be aired over on Royal and Poison's channel. That's going to be linked down in the description below. Meanwhile, another notable game to watch for this week 1 action is the RPI Engineers going on the road to play against the number 13th ranked Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets. Gridiron Games is going to be hosting it over on his channel later on this week if everything goes well. Speaking of things that I hope goes well, is this week's game of the week. We have number 2 ranked Amherst going on the road to play against a 21st ranked Middlebury's Panthers team. I'm sure it's going to be an extremely interesting game to watch. It is the most highly ranked matchup with an average rank between the two teams of just over 10. So it should be a really thrilling matchup, and we'll definitely be able to find out which teams where the teams stand over the course of this season with this nice little week 1 test. That's going to be airing over on my channel, looks like for Thursday night at about 6 p.m. Eastern. Going over on Big C Got Games channel, we have West Hartford, which is the number 6 team ranked in the nation according to the coaches poll, going on the road to play against Red Winds, which should be a nice cross-country matchup. Red Winds will have the advantage of being more well-rested as they don't have to travel across the country, but they are going to be coming in as the underdogs. So Big C Got Game is going to be handling that game over on his channel later on this week. Should be interesting to see who comes out on top for that matchup. Next up, we have the game in which Craniac Gaming is going to be hosting, which is this matchup with number 15th ranked Williams going on the road to go up against the unranked Augsburg Aggies. That should be an interesting matchup, and that's going to be over on Craniac Gaming's channel, which is going to be linked down in the description below for your enjoyment, of course. Then we have Poolwater Team, who does have a lot of Maximum Football content from last year, and hopefully we'll have plenty for this year's game as well. He's going to be handling the Guilford Quakers game, going on the road against a 5th ranked Trinity Tigers team. Trinity is a huge favorite there. St. Thomas and the Bellhaven Blazers is another really interesting top 25 matchup between 23rd ranked St. Thomas and 24th ranked Bellhaven, which Franchise Gaming is going to be handling over on his channel. Hopefully that gets up later on this week, as I still need to get these games out to my fellow content collaborators who are collabing with me on this series, which I'm really thankful that they're joining me for that. Then, of course, we have Johns Hopkins, which was knocked down. Actually, never mind. They're number 4 in the country, which is actually sounds about right for them. They go on the road to play against the Wheaton Thunder, who are currently unranked as of the time of this recording. John Hopkins is definitely going to be a big favorite, and Tyler 6352, he's going to be handling the game over on his channel, which I hope airs later on this week. Then we also have the 20th ranked DePaul Tigers going on the road against the 19th ranked Hardin Simmons Cowboys in what will be a nice top 20 matchup that Sin with Vengeance is going to be handling over on his channel later on this week. Once again, links will be down in the description below for your enjoyment, of course, and those links will be updated as the games go online. Meanwhile, we have this game right here between the third rank Central Colonels or Colonials. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with that name. Pretty sure it's Colonials going on the road to play against an unranked North Central team. I think personally they deserve to be ranked, but they have a chance to prove with this matchup. This game is going to be aired by Jay from TNJ, the man, the myth, the legend himself, and I'm so excited that he's going to be collabing with me on the series. His channel is going to be linked down in the description below, and we'll be updated with the video itself once it goes online. Finally, the last game of note that I want to point out is this game right here that's going to be on Coach Plays Games channel, which will, of course, once again be linked down in the description below. The Wartburg Knights are going to be going on the road to play against a 22nd rank Yersin's Bears team that is a little bit of an underdog within the Atlantic Shore Conference, but they can get off the right foot here with a win to start off this week 1 slate. Once again, that'll be over on Coach Plays Games. That'll be linked down in the description below. But hey, that is all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the very first video dedicated to the All-Created Teams Dynasty. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment for me, and if you're brand new to the channel and love Maximum Football, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as hit the bell, as I would tremendously appreciate that. Until then, I will see you guys next time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.